interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to South of the 8. I'm here with Bucky from Mi Vida Logan. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm so glad this is happening. I know we scheduled a couple of times, but life gets crazy, and I'm just glad we get to see the exhibit, before it goes down.
Perfect timing, too, because it goes down, or technically it's down. The artists pick up the artwork tomorrow, so tonight's the last night up.
Yeah, well, great introduction to it. Can you tell me a little bit about how Mi Vida Logan started, how it sort of embered up?
It was kind of random, like most things, right? The show came from just like the void that we have in Logan right now, which is not enough galleries, not enough spaces for art. And so that really kind of just made me think about the time when there used to be more galleries and there used to be more spaces for art. And I thought about, back in 2009, back into 2010, during like Voz Alta, Roots Factory, The Spot, that time there was a lot of shows. And then fast forward to like La Bodega, up until like 2000, I don't even know, 18 or something. Yeah. So, since then, we haven't seen a lot of shows. And so that's kind of where this all started. And a lot of the artists that are in this show are those artists from back in the day.
So they were looking for a spot pretty much. They're kind of artists themselves now?
No, they weren't looking. They had no idea what I was up to. So, I came up with this idea of like merging these two worlds. Right. These OG artists and then these new emerging artists in Barrio.
Okay, cool.
And so that's kind of where it all began. And I started to reach out to them and I said, hey, I have this idea for a show. Yeah. Are you down? Can you do it? It's a one night only.
Right.
And everybody was saying yes. It was beautiful. Everyone had said yes. And that's how the show came to be, Mi Vida Logan, right? Because it's kind of like our world out here and the life. And a lot of the art that's on the wall is their perception of that. Mm-hmm. So that was also really beautiful because it just kind of unfolded to be this like story about living in the barrio or, the appreciation of Barrio Logan.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is sort of this glorification, right? Whether it's through things like Coco or music and things like the urban. It's sort of like glamorized now. It's gotten to the point almost that, besides gentrification, right? Like you have people really trying to embrace it almost as their own, right?
Yeah.
Whitewashing it, but also again glorifying it, make it seem like it's great. And not that it's new. Yeah. It's been done to the Black community for ages. Yeah. But right now, being Latino is right. It's like the it thing. I mean, Bad Bunny says it, right? Yeah. Right? Everybody wants to be Latino. Yeah. Les falta sabor. I mean, it's not very common for me to quote Bad Bunny, by the way. But what I'm getting at is that I feel like these art exhibits are important because they show the side that maybe isn't considered, right? We live it as first, second generations. We live it as people that come from immigrant parents and things like that. But again, there is so much to our culture that when people pick and choose, it's frustrating. I personally don't love it. I have my reasons, but one of the main ones is that we're now just another commodity. We're more for them to sell us things, right? Yep. And which is why places like this are important because it's our community sort of within our community. And, kind of showing our community it's a circle and I'm okay with it.
Then it gives us an opportunity to tell our story and to share our experience. I think that's like a major thing around here is, just capturing what it really is. And really it's culture, and that's kind of what we have. And that's what, like you said, that's what everybody wants. It's like this Chicano culture, this Latinx art that's, now a thing. Now it's called Latinx, like before it was nobody paid attention to it. And I noticed a big rise of that art in the past 2 years. And I think that's what this show really kind of tells that story, but also we honor what happened 10 years ago and the path that others set forth, so that we can.
This isn't new.
Yeah, this isn't new, exactly. And even further than that, right? In the area, I mean, we're talking about back in the 70s, 60s, 50s. There's been a movement ever since.
What better? Sorry to interrupt. What better example of it than Chicano Park itself? Right?
Totally. I mean, that I think that's the major role, right? Is Chicano Park here is that resistance, that fight, and then what comes after that, which is just being able to be ourselves and being proud of that. I think that's definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, bringing the old with the new, because I feel like murals and art within Latin communities it's strong.
Right? Yeah.
You can't announce your tortas if you don't have a dope ass mural. You know what I mean? Like
totally a dope ass sign.
A dope ass sign. Yeah. I mean, the lettering, like that's culture. And
I
feel like when people associate culture, one, it's always from like a third point of view, as like we're studying your culture.
Yeah.
And it feels very creepy sometimes.
Yeah.
But also it'll be from like a snobby perspective. Like, right, you're thinking turtleneck, wine in the hand, and bidding $1 million for a piece, right?
Yeah.
With one line in the middle. So, I feel like a lot of times, you tell someone maybe my age or younger, and you tell them, oh, this is your culture. And they're thinking like, ugh, snore, right?
Yeah.
Because of the perception that they might have of like, quote unquote culture. But things like this is super cool because it's accessible. You look at it and you're like, holy shit, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like that's something I get a tattoo of. Like that's something that like, my grandma has that in her house.
Yeah.
Like it's just relatable. It's true.
Yeah.
Which is why it's important, because art and culture is for everybody. And it needs to be mainstream into sort of our communities, not mainstream abroad, but just like our communities need to accept it, right? Because
and to be proud of it.
Yeah,
I think that's one feeling that we don't get to always necessarily like go to all the time, right? We're always in the struggle, but to be proud of the community that you're from, whether it's here or other barrios, I mean that's what's up. And I think before maybe it was different, like looked upon bad or something, but I think, I don't know, maybe because we've been disconnected as a community and as a society for the past 2 years or 3 years, or whatever the pandemic was. And so to kind of connect with people and even feel that nostalgia of like what it is like to go get a torta down the block, and because I see this sign, whatever, it's nostalgic. And I think that's what a lot of people are searching for nowadays. So with the show, I felt that connectivity, like I connected with it. I felt a lot of people connected with the artwork, and a lot of stuff is new that you hadn't, that you necessarily wouldn't see anywhere. And, or like there's, like I said, there's not enough spaces to go and visit. So a lot of the artwork that we showcase is like new, it's like new photographers. It's like this rug is like insane, it's beautiful, and you would never even have thought of it. And there's other work that has like neon paint on it, and it's rad. And those are all artists giving us their experience, through art. And how it's relatable to us. So it's been really cool to do that.
Yeah, it seems, it honestly is pretty cool. And like you said, it's just sort of like a community hub, right? Like it's just bringing people together, as cliche as it may sound.
Yeah.
Especially after something like the pandemic and things like that.
Yeah.
But it needs to be said, like it needs to be appreciated, because if there's one thing I feel like a lot of us realize is that how volatile it all sort of is, right? Like how like going to Starbucks maybe isn't the easiest thing sometimes, or like getting food for your family, or like going to work, having a job, things like that. And places like this were definitely not appreciated, and when you have them back, it sort of gives you a little bit piece back of normal, whatever that may be, right? Moving forward, but also a step in a new direction, right? Like I feel like for myself especially, I was so set in my ways before the pandemic that when it hit, I was like, man, I never got to do XYZ. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, this thing was birthed from the pandemic.
I was going to ask, I'm sure, because a lot of podcasts kind of started that.
I'm a serial hobbyist. That's my addiction. I have too many things going on at once. So I told myself, like, I was always a fan of podcasts. And I told myself, I was like, all right, you're going to sell some of your old hobby stuff to pay for the new one, right?
Yeah.
Addiction fitting the addiction. Anyway, so I saw all my things that kept me entertained.
What was that? What kind of things?
A PlayStation, a bass guitar, things that I was doing like on my computer, like stuff like that. A laptop, like just things that kept me entertained, right? And then the pandemic hit, so I had sold everything and was left with nothing but cash.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, man, I just sold everything that was going to entertain me. So then I was like, it sort of kickstarted it off, because I was like, all right, now you have to commit. Like, you have nothing else going on. Like, I was lucky enough to stay working, but nothing else was going on, right? So I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to do this.
I guess I'm going to stay home.
I guess I'm going to stay home. And then I just watched a bunch of videos, figured it out, did what I could. And that's what we have here today. But what it made me realize is like, man, I never got to go to these fun restaurants or never got to go to these galleries, never got to go to these community events. And through the podcast, I was able to reach out to people. Like you mentioned, Carlos Paez. I remember seeing his music or seeing him perform. And I remember thinking like, man, I wish I would have talked to the guy, you know? And then through the podcast, I was like, yo, man,
that's
would you
so
like to
cool.
do an interview? And it was successful. It was a reason to do it, right? So again, it just sort of makes you, at least for me, it made me appreciate things that, man, maybe they weren't there. So
yeah, and you connect. You're still connected with people through a podcast.
Yes.
And that's
exactly.
awesome.
So that's kind of our thing and kind of where South of the 8 is now. I mean, we try to post as much as we can.
Yeah.
But no, the root of it is definitely still community, right? So like reaching out for things like this. I wish we would have done it from the get-go, you know, to try to bring more people in. But
maybe it's good timing now because now you've tackled how to use all this stuff and now you can pop up anywhere.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool coming to people's studios, coming to where people are because they feel comfortable. And
you get to capture like kind of like what it's about.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, I mean, very important part of the gallery itself is the location, right? Barrios Logan. Tell me what sets Barrios Logan apart as far as this sort of art from like the rest of San Diego, because San Diego's diverse. I mean, it's
definitely
different,
right? I think the obvious is a lot of the art. You know, a lot of the art in the neighborhood, the murals, right, that we talk about, Chicano Park, the street art, the small businesses that promote local artists, the collectives that are in the area, the art collectives. And it's just like I've always, I feel like we migrate here, you know, because this is kind of like, the Mecca, the Chicano Mecca, you know. Really I'm from the South Bay, so we don't have spaces like this. It's a little bit more broader. But I was always gravitated to come here because of the unity that is in the neighborhood. And so I think that's why people come here for that. They look for that. They want to be a part of that. A lot of people are already here. They've already, been here for many years, and they've really done a lot of the work. I've probably been in the area now, I consider myself a volunteer for like 12 years.
Okay.
And I gravitated because of the art scene. And at that time, I mean, that's like, I'm talking about like 2010. There was a small community of art, but it was like so major, they were doing things that were new, and they were like, people were coming to art shows in these like vacant warehouses, that we just kind of took over and made into art spaces. And so that spirit is always around. And to this day, we still have spaces that are like that. There's not a whole lot, but there's been many throughout the years. So location is huge. And I think to do a show like this called Mi Vida Logan, it had to be here. I mean, aside from my own personal experience, but somebody at the coffee shop the other day was like, hey, I'm glad that you did that show, because I think only you would have been able to get away with a name like that. And I was like, I know. I was expecting so much like backlash, right? Because in case people thought I was exploiting something, but really it's more about like my appreciation for the art scene here.
And I feel like Barrios Logan especially is very good at like sort of distincting
what is
like appreciation versus what is like trying to make a quick buck.
I still ask for permission.
Which, as you should, right? Like
I still get advice.
Like for anything, which is great, which is such a strong part of the community and how the community stays strong, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody's involved in one way or another, or appreciates it. Like when we had the museum open up and stuff like that. The turnout was amazing. We came. We were lucky enough to be there the first day. It was a lot of fun. And I remember talking to Jessica actually. We were saying like, this is great, but I can't wait to come back when there's not that many people. Because I'm glad that we were there. It was such a good experience to be in. But it's like, we'll be back though. I would be able to take it slow,
take your time.
Because I get it. Like we're all in a line and we're trying to go through. But it just
shows.
But
that's so great, that happened that way because. It just goes to show one, how much we love art, but then two, how much we need these spaces, so I'm glad that they're up and running for this year.
And they'll be appreciated. I feel like, was your turnout surprising?
Huge. I didn't know what it was going to be like from the start. I had probably like 2 weeks to put it together, and it probably took me 3 days to like really feel like, okay, this is gonna happen. And I remember dropping the flyer on Monday and the show was on Saturday. So I was really like, it was a hit or miss. It was gonna be hit or miss. So I was really like thinking like, is anyone going to show up? You know? And I just felt the energy and the momentum, and all the artists that I asked had said yes. And then we had like some heavy hitters, you know, like Chicle, Ricardo Islas. You know, I collaborated with Voz Alta, with the Roots Factory, with San Diego Zine Fest, and those are all well-known names. So I really felt good that, okay, we're going to get a turnout.
Getting the word out and sort of pumping it up, right?
Yeah, sharing the Instagram and everything. And so, yeah, it just kind of, it was coming together, and I could feel the energy. And I told all my friends, okay, we have to be ready by 4 when the doors open, because I just have a feeling people are going to come. And no one was really thinking that was the case. And right at 4 o'clock, it was just like, as soon as I opened the door, it just was like streams of people
awesome.
all night. So it was great. The energy was super high, super great. I got really awesome feedback. A lot of artists came to visit and really like pay their respects, to just, you know, either being in the show or just like, you know, coming to the show. So it was great. We got great support, fun night. We partied. We had DJs, you know, we had a bar going. We had like these crazy, like funky lights, you know, to set the vibe. Yeah. So it was fun. It was cool.
Yeah. See, I feel like that's really cool, because it sort of opens up a hunger for it, right?
Oh yeah.
Because everybody, it's like a posada. Like, when's the next one? Like, what are we doing next? Like, when's this gonna happen again? Because it really gets people going.
Yeah, and it really did, and that's actually why I ended up extending the show, because it was only supposed to be a one night only.
Right, yeah.
I sold it as a one night only. That's it, just one night. But it went so well that we were able to extend it, and then I put gallery hours, so it was a month-long show.
Right.
And every day that I was open, people came through. Yeah. And that was really great to see people come into the space. Like, this is just a vacant space. There's nothing. There's nothing here. You know, like, it's just a vacant space, white walls. And, you know, we made it look like a gallery, and people really came through and walked the gallery. Like, they took their time, they checked out each piece. And that was great, you know, because we were able to pretty much create an experience off this show. And then the closing night, that was great too, because it was the end of the show, and it was just such a good run. And we had a good turnout then too. So I was able to do 2 events and have the show be open for a month. So that was a success. That was a success.
I feel like the appreciation of the art for the appreciation's sake is super important. You know, because unfortunately we live in a time where like everybody tries to make their dreams into a job, right? Which kudos to them. I mean, grind it, right? Yeah. But the art for art's sake is beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I don't do this because I get paid. Yeah. I do it because I love
right. I didn't do this to get paid either. Yeah.
Which is super important, because someone will be like, oh, okay, well, like, what'd you walk away with? I'm like, I walked away with a good fucking time. Yeah. That's what I walked away with. And I feel like that's important. And not just for yourself, putting it together, but people that might be aspiring for art. For sure. Look at it and be like, that's cool. I want my art up there. Yeah. You know? A
lot of people were definitely like telling me how they just were like, wow, I'm just so blown away. Like, this is such a great show. This is such a great space. Yeah. And that's really what I like to walk away with too. Like, I don't get paid to do this. Exactly. I don't get paid to curate. I don't get paid. I didn't even share the proceeds. You know, I said, if you sell a piece, 100% it's for you. Nice. And everyone was like, you know, but what about your expenses? I'm like, I don't even care, you know, like, I just want to have a good show, and I'll put in, you know, like, how often do I get to do this, you know, not many anymore. Yeah. So it was worth it.
Well, like you mentioned earlier, labor of love, right?
Labor of love. Yeah. I have a lot of those. I have a lot of those kind of projects.
Yeah. But I mean, it just goes to show, and it's why it's respectable. It's why it's accepted in the community, because it's for the community, right? Like, I mean, it's not a factor of like, what am I going to walk away with, right? Yeah. Like, it's not a negotiation. It's just like, hey, like, I'd love to do this for the community. And it's great that Barrios Logan embraces that sort of behavior, because then we get to have cool events like this, right? And again, it opens up the scene for people to have a date night, or to have a place to go, or just again come and appreciate something that maybe they wouldn't have seen before. Yeah. Right?
My favorite part was those that came and purchased art. Yeah. You know, because that's also what we need more of, is we need, you know, people collecting more art, especially this kind of art where you are like you know, like, it's like you capture a scene in the neighborhood. Yeah. I don't know, but I love that. I love that idea. And so I really enjoyed that people walked around and they were like, I need to buy that piece. And they bought it. And now the artist made some money and now the piece lives on. And, you know, just from this little show that was literally just last minute, you know?
But those are the best, right? Like it's always the last minute things that are just, that turn out the best. But I mean, it's important, like you mentioned, the support of the artist, right? Like how, I mean, a share is important, but like it's something like social media, which can be used as a tool. And you mentioned earlier you collaborate with a lot of people to sort of get the hype up and make it happen. It could also sort of be tricky at times, just because the algorithm maybe just doesn't show your work.
Right.
But it's why it's important, right? Like a share is important, a like is important, because you're like, hey, May, listen, maybe I can't buy a piece of art, but tell your friends, tell your family, like maybe someone has a free day that they can come and check something like this out. Yeah,
everybody that walked in, I was like, please share it, tag us in it, you know. Just because I feel these moments, they pass by so fast. They're real good moments, and because we live in like this Instagram world where, like, you know, your feed lasts 5 seconds and you're all caught up or whatever. And so it's like, you really do have to capture and appreciate it at that time.
Yeah, and it's important. Again, at this point, it's just a tool. Like, you can't afford not to use it. Like, unfortunately,
we depend on it.
That's the way to put it.
In some ways.
And I understand and I accept it as someone that uses it as a main vehicle for what I do. But I accept it because it's like, okay, listen, I'm going to use it, but also I'm going to be wary of it, right? Because I don't want to get too lost in it. I try to fight it back a little bit, because it's not enough that you see it in the picture. Like, I'm glad someone shared it. Yeah. Cool. Now come and see it. Come check it out. Come enjoy everything around it. Because, yes, the art is beautiful and you should see it. But you should also see it with people you love. You should also come and meet people or maybe meet the artists, meet the people that are around it. Support local people. And I think that's super important as far as, like, the art itself, but also the community around it, right? Just kind of getting people out there. Just again, and then maybe you're walking around, grab some coffee, right? Like, or maybe grab a bite, grab a beer, grab a taco,
yeah. It all plays its part, and that's like our world around here. It's like you want to spend money in the hood, you know, as much as you can.
Oh, yes, please. Yeah. Bezos doesn't need any more of our money.
Yeah, right. Totally.
It really comes down to that, because it's like, listen, I understand that you worked hard for your money, and I respect that. You're 100% right. But consider the fact that maybe your money could not just do good for you, but it could do good for your community. Yeah. Right? And then that circles back, and maybe they'll spend some money on your business, and then, you know, and just kind of like that ecosystem, you know?
A lot. And then I felt like a lot of people met each other and are like now collaborating on other things.
That's awesome.
And that's really great. I love that. I love seeing either other artists or just other creatives linking up and then creating something. So it's like just this like chain of effect constantly happening. So
meeting cool people, getting to do something, you know. But also maybe people that never thought they could do something like this. Right? Yeah. Walking in and thinking like, well, I'm kind of good at drawing.
Well, there was actually this photographer who she mentioned how she used to go to the art shows at one of the galleries, you know, back 10 years ago. And she was a kid. And now she's an adult. And now, because that spark of inspiration, you know, just catapulted her to do photography. And then now she's in the show. You know, and then, you know, some of the people that were in that show are in this show. So it's like this like full circle, and like, and that was really cool, you know. And even for me on a personal level, like starting off being just a visitor at art shows, and then being a volunteer, and then just helping, you know, being part of an art collective, and then to finally curate my own show, that was like that's like a milestone for me. Because I appreciate the art world so much, and so to be able to curate something is a big deal. So to me, and so that was really cool to also experience that.
Also, for it to have the reaction sort of that it had.
Yeah,
right?
I received positive and negative, you know, like
well,
always.
Don't we all?
But I feel like I took it all, you know, I absorbed it, and I was like, okay, you know, maybe I shouldn't do this, but I should definitely do this. Yes. So it's the good and the bad will always happen, especially around here.
Feedback is always good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but then again, it's like you can't make a mistake unless you try, right? Like it's sort of
and you can't explain it to every single person what it is. You know, everyone has their own interpretation of things, and you know, as much as I try to be upfront, like you can never answer everyone's question, you know.
But also, hey, like this is great. This speaks volumes of not just the people that crave it and want to see it, but also the people that want to put it out there. Right?
Yeah, and it's like such a great, beautiful reminder that there are so many artists out here,
100%.
so many amazing artists. Like I could probably have this show 10 more times with a whole new round of artists. So hopefully that'll be something that I can do again.
Which is inspiring, right?
Yeah.
Because again, like if you're not within the circles, when you're not within the collective, sometimes maybe you just don't know about them, right? Like you don't get to discover these people because they're just not in your feed, unfortunately, you know?
Yeah.
Or you're not surrounded by them and stuff like that, you know? But it's cool for like normally like me to be able to cruise through this and be like, oh, that's cool, you know, and then look them up and be like, wow, this is really cool art. I like this. And again, art is open to interpretation, so just because you walk in a gallery doesn't mean you're gonna love everything,
right? Yeah.
But you might gravitate to one thing or the other, and I feel like that's powerful in itself.
Yeah, because it could be anything from the art to the space to the vibe. Like, I mean, everything plays its part. So, yeah, I think that's a major thing. I also think that in the process of putting this together and like taking this space and making it something out of nothing was also a really great experience, and I'm glad that I got to share that too, because people came by and were like, I've passed by this storefront forever and it's been vacant, you know, for 3 years, and it's cool to come in, you know, because you know, there's so many spaces that you never get to walk through in the neighborhood, and so it's nice to also open the doors and have people experience that too.
Yeah, so you're sort of like physically and metaphorically filling a void in the community.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Whether it was art, but also within this space.
Yeah.
Because it's being used and it doesn't look, you know, it's being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
In a positive way. Just because, again, this is one of the few walkable areas we have within San Diego.
I'm glad that you said. Yeah, that's
you know?
another reason why I gravitate so much to this area, is that you can walk around, and you know, it reminds me of it. This city doesn't necessarily remind me of bigger cities like Mexico City or, you know, like you can't compare. But the fact that there's walkability, that's great. You know, that's really great.
Which again, it's not very common. I mean, I also come from the South Bay, and I mean, we have things. I mean, I grew up in National City and in Chula Vista. Chula Vista now has a bit of a scene, but it's only a couple blocks. Like, if you really break it down, I mean, Third Avenue, right? Like, it's not very much. We appreciate it and we support it as much as we can. But when you really think about it, it's like, well, it's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is more popular in the north, right? You have places like PB, or you have like a Hillcrest, and you have, which is great, and those are also their own little cultural hubs. But just for our sake, I feel like we really just sort of have Barrios Logan. Yeah. And I just wished it was more available, you know?
Yeah. And even, I mean, like, and we have so much right now compared to what we had even like 7 years ago. You know, Logan Avenue was like a vacant avenue of storefronts. Super abandoned, you know, just like not taken care of. And it wasn't because the residents didn't want that. It was just the economy, right? Like, who can afford a storefront? But with time, I think developing Logan Avenue to what it is today has really added a lot of benefit to the culture, to the community. Some people might not think so, you know, but I think it makes it where it's accessible to us. And when I say us, I mean like la gente, you know, like raza. Like, it's great to walk into a store and be like, oh my God, there's some Bad Bunny slippers, I'm gonna get that. And then you walk somewhere else and you're like, oh my God, there's like a war record, I'm gonna get that, you know, or there's like this new Chicano art store, you know, or whatever it is. Like, there's that variety here, and that's unique. A lot of times we don't think so. Like, you're talking about like Third Avenue, we don't think it's special, but a lot of people will come and experience it for the first time and be like, oh my God, like, that's so cool. I had a beer at Three Punks called, you know, this charming, I forget whatever it's called. And that's rad, you know, that's a take on the Smiths, and I love that band or whatever. So I like how there's a lot of things that connect us together through our creativity.
Yeah, super relatable, but also super like approachable, right?
Yeah.
Because then again, like I mentioned earlier, like there are those other spaces, but I always sort of felt like out of place, right? Like you have this sort of imposter syndrome of walking around PB.
Oh yeah,
North
you're
Park.
like, I don't want to listen to Britney Spears right now. I want to listen
seriously,
to.
I want to jump around. I want to dance. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So like, and again, like they have their own. It's great for a lot of people, but just sometimes, growing up and seeing those places the only option was a little disconcerting. It was
for
just kind of
sure.
like, man, that's all I have to look forward to.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to be a border kid, so my escape was Tijuana.
Oh, me too.
Growing up, it was just kind of like, whoa, when I go with my cousins,
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
get to walk to the store and then walk to the arcade and then walk for churros or whatever. So like you always have that sort of life over there.
Yeah.
And then coming back here and be like, oh, it's boring.
Yeah,
Let's
like
go to
for
school
me, and living in the South Bay, it's like walking to the trolley was like the biggest thing, right? Like, oh my God, I'm gonna walk to the trolley and go to downtown.
Yeah.
But then you're right. It's like then going to Tijuana and you're like, you're like, oh, I'm gonna go to La Revu and just walk up and down that street. Like it's endless entertainment.
Or even just to like the abarrotes on the corner, right?
Yeah.
You're passing like 2 other stores that someone has at their house.
Yeah.
So like, and then, it's all available, and then you're walking around with 10 pesos, and then they get you so far, and then you're having the time of your life, right?
Yeah.
But, so that walkability, I feel like, even though cars are great for a lot of things, they are such an imposition into culture and community.
Oh, for sure.
And it's really sad.
It is, because once you once you get to experience what that's like, you're like, oh my God, this is what I've been missing.
Oh yeah.
I think for me, when I was younger, I moved to the Bay Area, and San Francisco is all walking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I loved it because I discovered coffee, I discovered galleries, I discovered stores, and that's actually really what I was looking for when I moved back home.
Yeah.
Is like that community, that walkability, that culture, that unity, all of that. So coming back home and seeing like what was developing down here was like really exciting, because I was like, oh great, it looks like there's art coming and there's galleries, and that's really cool. And then it happened, because then it spread to Logan Avenue, and all these things started to open up. La Bodega, Por Vida, Salud, Border X. In the very beginning, like I said, like 7 years ago, and then fast forward to today, and it's like every single store or every single storefront, it's occupied.
Long list I've heard.
Yeah. Oh my God. There's about 50 businesses on the block, and most of them are owned by women.
Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. I was talking to a buddy of mine. He has a bookstore in the Art Hub.
Oh, yeah.
And I asked him, just out of curiosity, like, there's a lot of studios here. Like, how much would it be?
Yeah.
Just kind of in conversation. He's like, yeah, I wouldn't get your hopes up, man. He's like, I heard the list is super long. And I'm like, that's great, though. I'm like, well, for me, it was just kind of like a passing thought. But I'm so happy to hear that it's booming. It's booming, and it's just asking for more.
It's funny because we think it's booming because it's there, but they struggle, like any business. Yeah. So it's kind of like this, people really have to work hard to keep that going, and even to like preserve like what's here without selling out or without exposure or whatever. So it's like this fine game that you're not just here. You don't just have a store. It's like, no, you have a store in a very conscious neighborhood, a very conscious community. So you have to tread carefully.
Yeah, you're speaking for yourself, but also you're representing sort of everybody around you, right?
I wouldn't say that.
Pressure, you think?
That's a lot of pressure for sure, because there's so many people, so many visions of what this neighborhood should be. Right. We have a lot of amazing gatekeepers, right? They protect the neighborhood from outsiders. Outsiders could be anybody. It could be a threat. It could be government. It could be self-inflicted. It could be many different things. But then you have a lot of people that are just like, they just love like being here, whether they grew up here or not. They just love it. I think because it's relatable. It's like we migrate to this zone because we feel like this is where we're going to get accepted. This is where we belong,
No, I can speak for myself as a transfer. I like to consider myself, because also I didn't necessarily grow up here. Yeah. I always knew what Chicano Park was. We'd pass by it. We'd hang out. We'd come to Cuatro Milpas. Yeah. But it wasn't until I was like, I want to say 22, 23 years old. Not that long ago. No, but that I really like gravitated myself, because was driving over here. I was coming over to drink. I was coming over to hang out, and having those like weekend events and things like that. And you're like, oh, wow. And you really start taking it in, right?
Yeah.
And you start trying the coffee shops and you go kind of all over the place. And
you start making friends, then they know you, and you walk into the bar, and they're like,
hey, let's meet up here, let's go get tacos, vamos por una cerveza.
Yeah.
So there's always that sort of like, again, it goes back to our community hub thing, because when people think community, it's like, oh, it's because everybody knows everybody. It's like, well, sometimes, but sometimes it also means that your group of friends feel safe within the community.
I like that.
And I think that's strong, and that's really powerful, because again, I come from like Chula Vista, which is super Latinx and stuff like that, but it didn't have that sort of feeling. Or like National City, they have their own thing going on.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean. We always sort of gravitated more over here.
Yeah, I think maybe because it's edgy. I don't know. We push it, as far as we can.
And it's very in your face to the point where you're like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm Latino. Like, I feel like super proud of it, and I'm gonna wear it. I'm gonna tattoo it. I'm gonna buy a shirt with it. I'm gonna, you know what I mean? It's just like really, really embrace it.
I feel like people discover their identity. Like a lot of people identify themselves more as Chicano these days than ever, or they want to. So that's really great too, because again, it kind of goes back to being prideful, having pride in being Mexican American, Chicano, whatever you identify as. So coming here, that freedom of identity is like a major thread.
Yeah, definitely, and also just a safe. Right, it's great to be surrounded by people that look like your cousins and your tias, right? Like
most likely they probably will be.
You probably are somehow related, right?
Yeah.
No, but it really it is sort of unexplainable, right? Because someone might be hearing this, like, what are you talking about, man? Like, it's just a place, it's just a street with a bunch of things. They just want your money. I'm like, no, man, I can't explain it. Like, there is an appreciation and respect for it. But like you mentioned, there is gatekeepers, but gatekeepers that are needed for it to flow the way that it flows, right? For it to have the events that it has and have the sort of, everything that it is because it's structured. It doesn't just happen, right?
No.
Like, you don't just pop shop and like, okay, everything's going to go great. Like you said, it's hard work.
Yeah.
And committing to it and having a vision for it, whatever that may be.
Yeah, and I think too, the gatekeepers will kind of put everybody into check, because it's so easy to get excited and be like, I'm going to have an art show and I want everybody to come and I'm going to invite everyone. But then in doing so, you can invite the wrong person into the neighborhood, and things like that tend to happen. So with gatekeepers, it's like, hey, keep it, keep it chill, keep it local.
And those things like are okay. Like there is a sort of like cultural gatekeeping that I believe is super acceptable, because there is a fine line between appreciation and whitewashing it, really, or like
or selling it out, or
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just it's a fine line to thread on, especially as like newer generations come along. They want to change the world, right? Like everybody has the idea that's gonna propulse their community over, right?
Yeah.
But you need balance.
Yeah.
And I think that's why those things are important.
Yeah. And I mean, I think too, it's like you remember like the importance of preservation and history and struggle. And so even though it's exciting, you still have to kind of keep grounded.
Yeah. No, most definitely. And that's important. But also, like I said earlier, like places like this are important for a lot of reasons. And I'm glad they're happening. You think we'd be seeing more stuff like this, or is this kind of?
Yeah, I
is this triggering anything? Is our things moving? Are people like, let's go more?
Oh yeah, like so many people have asked me, how can they throw an art show?
Cool.
How can they be part of a show? And I'm just like, I mean, this was just supposed to be a one-time thing.
I don't know.
I have no idea, but I can connect you to whoever. Yeah. But I would love to do more shows, of course. I really love this space. This space is just a lender, like it's just, I borrowed the space while it's vacant. One day it'll be vacant and then, potentially lose access. But I feel like more and more I'm tempted to, to take over it.
Yeah.
I definitely will take over at least for another month or two. So we're going to have another show. We're going to feature an artist that is in this show. Her name is Banca.
Okay.
I'm really excited about that show. I'm really excited about. She's my friend, so it's also exciting to be part of something with a friend and work on with. And her art is just great. And so for her to do a whole show is going to be really great. And this is her second solo show. Her first one was 3 years ago, right before the pandemic hit at Bread and Salt. So it was bittersweet because it was a huge success. But you can only visit it for so long until they just kind of started shutting things down. So it'll be great to see what she'll come up with, because she's very excited to do something and share with everyone.
I mean, what a sort of duality, right? Like the pre-pandemic show that got cut short to now sort of, I mean, we're kind of the ashes and the rising phoenix of what is now the new normal, right?
Yeah.
I hate that term, but like to what we've sort of embraced, the endemic of COVID, right?
And to like what, how that's like played into her art. I'm excited to see that too, because I mean, I think she's been just like sketching things ever, that's all she could do, right? That's all
she thought of, I'm sure.
She's been thinking about this show probably for a long time, you know, because that's all you can do for a while, right? Is hang out in your space, in your art studios and whatnot. So I'm excited to see like all the crazy doodles that she'll just come up with.
She'll come out. Sort of maybe a chronology of like when it started up to that.
I don't know. She was already telling me, she's like, I'm going to paint the floors, and I have these ideas for the floors. That's and I'm just like, the floors, what, and that, so if she's talking about the floors, I can only imagine what she's going to do to the walls.
So that's awesome. That's sort of like raw energy of art. It's so inspiring.
Yeah.
Because like, again, like art in itself, everybody thinks it's just a drawing, but there's just so much emotion that comes behind it. Or like, and also sort of giving you an emotion. Just because the artist painted a certain way, the interpretation can fly to the wall. And I think it's the artist's job to sort of give you something you can interpret, but at the end of the day, you're going to take it however you want to take it. And that in itself is art. Right? I mean, it's your emotions to something or how that makes you feel. And
that in itself, like as a bigger picture, is like such a beautiful thing, that the art evokes that in you. And so it happens with the artist, and it happens with, the person taking in the art. So I'm excited for that.
I mean, for me as a normie, I feel like I used to walk around galleries or just museums and be like, oh, I like that one. I like that one.
Yeah.
But then it wasn't until I read something that I was like, well, if you don't like that one, why don't you like it? What is it about it that you don't like it, right? And for me, I mean, I'm not trying to teach you anything. Clearly, you know more about art than me. I'm just telling you the way I started really appreciating art for the art's sake more than just picking the ones I want in my room. I went from thinking like, oh, I want that one. Like sort of like window shopping. I went from window shopping to really looking at something like, I wonder what they were thinking, or this is kind of interesting. Like, why don't you like it? Yeah. So for me, it's still sort of a process. I'm still trying to appreciate more, but it is powerful, and I think like more people should open themselves to art, not just visual, but just any kind of art that makes you feel something. That maybe you're
like studying the art.
Yeah, I feel like it gets a bad rap because it can have the connotation of snobbiness. You know what I mean? Especially I love film, but there is sort of an idea that you're like, oh, you're gonna become a snob, right? Like if you like, if you keep quoting Goodfellas or something like that.
I have a few friends that they love film, and they're quoting things, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
You're speaking in your own language. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's so cool when you see someone that sort of has a passion, like a spark. Yeah. I love that more than anything. But sometimes I love that more than their art. I'm like, I don't get it, but I love how you get it. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's true. Awesome. Yeah, you can either be really like into the artist, like themselves, who they are, or the art, and anything could get your attention, right? Whether it's colors or it's the scene or whatever it could be. Like there's one piece in here, like you were saying, and like about you picking the one art that you like in your room or something. There's one piece in here that I would probably never put in my room, but I love it.
Yeah, there you go.
And the scene is really tragic. It's like, somebody on the side of the street, shot.
I felt it too. I saw it and I was like, oof, kind of looked away right away.
Yeah, that piece is one of my favorite ones. And it's really like hard to look at, but there's beauty there. There's like something captured there. So when you say like, you just can't really pick and choose what you're going to like or what you're going to be drawn to. So
yeah, and it's just being open to it, trying something different,
Yeah.
But again, it's why these places are important and why walking around is important. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people got to see this place because of where it is, not necessarily for what it is. Because like you said, it's walkable, right? So someone will go on a stroll and they're like, oh, I've seen that bacon for so long. Let's check it out.
Yeah, or people like literally walk by and be like, "Oh, what is this? Is this a store? Like, are you selling art?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, technically we are selling art. Come in, please."
Check it out.
And then I explain to them like it's an art show, and it's about this, but it's about that. And a lot of people discovered it that way too, awesome. Which is great because it was a lot of the neighbors in the neighborhood. So that's really great. I love when I get to interact with the neighbors, wherever I'm at, whatever I'm doing around the area. Because that's important too, is to connect with who's the community itself, not just like the community of people that come or the community of artists. It's really also about connecting with the actual community and how the story of this show is about them.
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like last thing you want to do is isolate yourself within the community and create an island with the people that are like, we don't even know what goes on over there.
Yeah, no, I mean, that wouldn't fly around here.
No, for one, it wouldn't fly. But it is definitely, I'm sure it's something to aim at, right? And which is another reason why it's so cool, because it doesn't try to be something it's not, right? It's rooted, it's grassrooted as much as it can be, and which is why it thrives, I think, right? Because a lot of things will be sort of trendy, right? Like a lot of things can be trendy, and like you said, you can sell out and be trendy and whatever, but that'll last you a year or 2 years, whatever time. Yeah. But if you make it by the community, for the community, respecting the community, then it lives on, right? It
lives on. I mean, there's nothing like doing something with intention, right? And so for me, that's what this was about, and doing something with intention is important. And it feels different, it feeds your soul, it feeds your art, whatever you're trying to accomplish. So it's nice to do that and to share it. And this space is great. I mean, it was vacant for a long time. It is really cool. And when I first came in, I was like, this feels kind of like a gallery, and that's also where the idea came from. I was like, we need to, if we can, like maybe, it's about really also occupying space.
Right.
There's not many, before there used to be many vacant storefronts around here, and it was great because you can afford one. And now it's not. And so to be able to take over this space for, almost kind of like as long as I want to use it is rare in itself. And I'm definitely going to take advantage of that.
That's awesome. That's awesome because, again, I mean, you're taking advantage of it for the sake of the community, right? Like you're bringing something to the table, which I think is super important. And I mean, it's awesome that it lasted as long as it did. Like
I know, I'm telling you, it was only supposed to be one night. I told everybody one night only, please come. Maybe that's why people came, because I was like, it's a one night show. But so it was great to be able to extend it and keep sharing it and have people keep coming. Because a lot of people were like, oh, I was out of town, I didn't get to make it. Even the artists, came that couldn't make it that night. So it was great to have the space open and to treat it like a gallery space, and to meet people walking through and answer their questions and explain to them. That was a lot of fun for me, and I think a lot of people made it a point to come and visit.
Well, Bucky, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you, I guess, for inviting us over. I'm glad we got to do it here.
Yeah, it was perfect timing. Happened. Yeah, I know. I'm glad. Thank you for coming and capturing the artwork while it's up. It's gonna come down, and that makes me sad, but glad that we did it.
Glad that it happened.
Yeah, right? Glad that it happened.
But anyway, where can we find you for the next move?
Yeah, so we have an Instagram. It's called Mi Vida Logan, all lowercase, all one word. I'll be using that Instagram for this show and other things related to Mi Vida Logan, because we have a couple of more ideas of what we want to do, how to branch out. And then my Instagram is just at Labux, Labux. You can always follow me there for just random stuff that I'll post.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you again for inviting us over. Thank you again for the great conversation.
Yeah.
And we're excited to see what happens from here on out.
Thank you.
We'll be here for sure. We unfortunately missed this one, but I'm so glad we got to be here. Like you said, things happen. You get busy. But,
well, now you got to be here intimately, so that's cool.
Yes, that's even better. But we'll be there for the next one.
Great.
Again, thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks.